I'm LaRain, founder and director of Atlanta National Hypnotherapy Institute and Atlanta West Hypnotherapy Clinic. We are a school, a state-authorized school, and also a clinic. The school has been in practice for 12 years, and the clinic has been in practice for over 34 years. I would like to tell you a little bit about how hypnotherapy works and why it works. And the easiest place to start is when you were a baby. When you were a baby, your mind was strictly subconscious. There was no critical brain. Positives and negatives just dropped right down there into the subconscious mind, and they were accepted as truth. The child identified and associated with these positive and negative imprints. If mom gave baby a bite of ice cream, I would think that would be a very good imprint. But if the baby touched something that was a little bit too warm, that would be a negative imprint. Eventually, those become our life scripting. By the time this child is 8 years old, somewhere between the ages of 8 and 12, the child begins to develop the critical part of the brain. Now, it isn't very strong yet because it's just developing. The child begins to ask more questions. They're not quite as gullible. They don't believe everything quite as easily. But by the time this child is a teenager, the critical part of the brain still is not very strong. Now, if you combine the fact that the critical brain, it isn't very strong yet, with the need for peer approval and acceptance, well, you can see why that might sometimes get that teenager into trouble. Now, most parents have observed this at some time or another, how suggestible their teenagers are to their peers. Now, if the teenager drinks alcohol or takes drugs, it weakens the critical part of the brain even more, so it may not become strong till even in the 20s. But even after it does become strong, there are a lot of things that can overload the critical part of the brain. And they're called message units. And they're coming into the brain all the time. Some experts estimate that there are up to 2 million message units coming into our brain every second. They come from our body. Pain is a big one. They come from our environment, television, how we interact with our mate at work, all the thousands of things that are coming into our mind every day. Message units come from our conscious mind as we try to reason things out, make sense of it, detailed thinking, make decisions. But probably the biggest source of our message units is our subconscious mind here. Because everything is there. Everything you've ever learned, heard, said, did, read, every conversation, everything, every movie you've ever watched, everything is recorded there. Your genetic memory is there, your genetic heritage, everything. Even your insecurities. So the critical part of the brain is trying to hold down that information all the time. Your subconscious mind is picking up eye movements, facial expressions, body language, picking up on thoughts as well as words to the tune of 2 million a second, perhaps, maybe even more. I don't believe we really know, but we know it's a lot. Your conscious mind, it's only picking up a small amount. Remember a time when you met someone and there was something about them you liked or you didn't like, yet you knew very little about them. That's because your subconscious mind was picking up all this information. But your subconscious mind was only picking up a little bit. Now the only way that you get rid of these message units is when you go to sleep at night. It takes 8 hours of sleep to get rid of 16 hours of message units. So when you go to sleep at night, the critical part of the brain relaxes and the message units are analyzed and they go to wherever they need to go in the brain. Some are vented out in early morning dreams. Now if the person is confused about the dream, maybe it was frightening or it bothered them, and they take it back in and they're thinking, well, I wonder what that meant. They're actually taking that dream back in again. Then the subconscious mind will try to vent it out again, either symbolically or literally, trying to get rid of it until you finally let it go. Now there's another way that we get rid of message units. The other way is in the hypnotic state. Because when you're in hypnosis, the critical part of the brain here is bypassed. So message units are just dropped down into the subconscious mind. That's why someone can come in and they're sad, depressed, overwhelmed, crying, and then they leave and they're smiling, they're feeling good, their mind is more clear, they're able to think more clearly, focus better, handle things better. That's because we were able to drop all those message units. Now we all go into environmental hypnosis sometimes. It's a natural God-given state. Anxiety and hypnosis are created in the very same way. Hypnosis is created by message units in a positive, controlled environment. Anxiety is created by the same thing, message units coming into the brain in a negative, uncontrolled environment. Remember a time when you were driving down the road, and you had your conscious mind on a problem, and you got to where you were going and you thought, I don't remember turning that corner, stopping at that light. Well, your conscious mind was on the problem, but your subconscious mind took you there. Remember times when you got up in the morning and maybe you made a cup of coffee and you're thinking, did I make that coffee or not? You are on automatic when you did it. So everyone goes into environmental hypnosis sometimes. It's a natural state. A hypnotherapist utilizes this natural state to help you reach your goals. Now, your conscious mind is 1 to 12%. And that's the part of your brain that uses logic and reason and willpower. So you make up your mind there about something you want to do. Did you keep your resolutions? Did you consciously make New Year's resolutions? Did you keep them? If you did, good for you. When you made them, you must have wanted to reach those goals. So if you didn't keep them, what happened? Well, what happened was you found yourself in a situation that triggered the subconscious part of the mind. And the subconscious part of the mind is 88 to 99% of everything you do. It handles all automatic things. It associates. It identifies. It handles your expectations and your imagination. So consciously, with that 1 to 12%, you made a decision. You wanted to stop drinking alcohol. You wanted to be more patient, more tolerant or understanding with your loved ones. You didn't want to get upset in traffic You wanted to handle situations better in your life and take control of your life. You wanted to stop smoking or exercise or lose weight. And you meant it when you said it. But then you got into that situation that triggered the subconscious back into action. And the next thing you knew, you found yourself doing the same things again. Well, a hypnotherapist works with this 88 to 99%, changing the way that you associate and identify with a particular habit or behavior so that your subconscious mind works for you instead of against you. Now, we work with physicals and we work with emotionals. And the physicals, that we call them physicals, they're right brain dominant individuals. The ones we call emotionals are left brain dominant individuals. Now, we usually think of an emotional as someone walking around with their feelings on their sleeve, don't we? But that's not what it means here. Emotional here means someone who hides their emotions. So when they tell you a little bit how they feel, there's a whole lot they haven't told you. It's a little bit like looking at an iceberg. There's a little bit above the water, but there's a whole lot that you don't see. Now, when we work with physicals, we have to make suggestions to them directly, but they speak with inferences. When we work with emotionals, we have to speak to them with inferences that they speak directly. Even their speech is a complement to each other, and usually one is attracted to the other in a relationship. Remember when you first met your mate, your partner? Do you remember that it seemed like there was so much to talk about and you could hardly wait to see each other? That's because those communication patterns were perfect. So as we work with people in the hypnotic state, we have to hypnotize them different. We have to work with them different, depending on how they learn and take in information. Now, physicals, right brain dominant individuals, when we talk to them, they look right at you. They are more friendly, they're more outgoing, they have a strong need for acceptance and approval, they relate to colors well, they're able to visualize, they can be very creative, they work well in groups. Generally, they like people. They're good in sales group, teaching, they're good at small talk, they're comfortable with compliments, receiving them, and giving them. Emotionals, they're different. Those left brain dominant people, they have a space around them. They don't want anyone in their space or in their face. When you talk to them, they often look away from you like that, especially if you're talking about them. They're uneasy in groups, and they would be extremely uncomfortable if they were called to give a presentation or a lecture, unless they've taught themselves to be comfortable in that situation. At a party, that would be the person that would probably be in the back with someone they know and they're more comfortable with. This person does not like confrontation. They tend to be more introverted. They're very analytical and often pick out careers where their analytical ability may be used. We work with another one. We call them a somnambulist, and we say that they're 50-50s. They have equal input from the left and the right side of the brain. They're often already in the hypnotic state. They're in environmental hypnosis. So they tend to be overly suggestible to most things in their life. Have you ever seen a stage performance with hypnosis? I went to one with my son. The hypnotist asked everyone to throw their wallets on stage. when they did that, they knew who they were. Most physicals and emotionals wouldn't do that, but a somnambulist most likely would. So when they went up to get their wallets, he knew who they were. But he still had to send some back to their seats because they weren't in that environmental hypnotic state deep enough all by themselves. There wasn't a trick to it. Actually, he didn't do anything. They were already hypnotized in environmental hypnosis before they ever saw him or before they ever met him. Like I said, they're usually overly suggestible to other people's negativity and influences. A hypnotherapist will help block that, so it's easier for them to size up a situation and to say no to those things that aren't in their best interest, and of course, that gives them more control in their lives. Now, physicals and emotionals, and also somnambulists, there are many degrees to them. If this was 50% and this was 100%, they might fall in here. And a physical or emotional that's 80% and one that's 60% are very different. So there are a lot of degrees within the particular. Now, a physical or emotional may be so overwhelmed and overloaded with message units that they begin to act like a somnambulist, but eventually they come up and out of it. However, a natural somnambulist lives in that state pretty much all of the time. Remember, our suggestibility is the way that we learn and process information. And we learn that from our main caretaker when we're a child. Usually, it's our mother. There's another kind of suggestibility. It's our sexual suggestibility. There's a physical sexual and an emotional sexual. And that's the way that we put out all that we've learned back into the world, but especially into a relationship. We call it our sexual suggestibility because we become suggestible in the way that we interact in a relationship based on all of our conditioning, what we have observed growing up, and what our subconscious mind identifies and associates with in a relationship. Our sexual suggestibility is usually learned from our secondary caretaker, usually our father. The physical sexual suggestible person, they have a very strong need to feel needed, to feel loved, to feel accepted and appreciated. They have love and sex and acceptance all tied up together in their head, so rejection is very difficult for them. In fact, if they're high enough physicals, if the degree of their physical suggestibility is high enough, then rejection might even be devastating to them. In a relationship that's good, they can make love every night and still like to be cuddled or held afterwards. Not so with this emotional sexual suggestible. They do not have love, sex, and acceptance tied together in their head. So they can love someone and not have sex with them. They operate on a sexual cycle of every 3 to 7 days, and that's the only time it's good for them, is on that sexual cycle day. The higher left brain they are, the higher the cycle is. So it may only come around once in a week, 2 weeks, maybe even once in a month or more, depending on the percentage of their emotional sexual suggestibility, what that is. Now after the sex act, they usually want to turn over and be left alone. They may still like to be cuddled or held afterwards if they're low on the scale, but if they're high, they just want to turn over and be left alone. However, this emotional sexual, in the beginning of a relationship, that person acts like a physical, because that's the only time that the excitement of the newness of the relationship overrides that natural behavior. So that somewhere between 5 to 7 years, they begin to return to their natural behavior and emotional sexual. Now this can be very confusing to their mate. They think, what happened? He or she never used to be this way. They may even wonder if their mate loves them anymore, when the truth is they may love them very, very much. They've just returned to the natural state, what's natural for them. Now they estimate that there's about 144 levels of hypnosis. We say that we work from 7 to 12 levels. Let me tell you what you feel in those levels. They used to think that the deeper you went, the better the results would be. We now know that's not true. Some things do best in a very light state, such as weight. If we get a person too deep when we're working with weight, we don't get the good results. We use that deep level only for reinforcement of suggestions that we've given up above in the lighter state. Now, in some levels of hypnosis, you're more alert, you're more aware than you are right now, listening to me as I talk. In other levels, you feel like you can open your eyes and just walk out, but you don't want to. Other levels, you get a heaviness in your arms, your hands, your legs, your feet, or maybe in your whole body. Other levels, you experience a heaviness. Some levels, your mind will drift off onto something totally different than what the hypnotherapist is talking about. That's okay. That's just another level. And then some levels, you drop down past your hypnotherapist's voice. And that's when people usually come out of the hypnotic state and they say, I went to sleep. Well, they didn't go to sleep. The brain patterns are different. But even in that deep level, let's suppose the hypnotherapist said something to you that you didn't like. You would abreact. You would squint your eyelids tight or jerk your body. But if the hypnotherapist said something strong enough that you didn't like, you would abreact and come right up and out of the hypnotic state. And then your subconscious mind wouldn't allow the hypnotherapist to hypnotize you again because you wouldn't trust her. Your subconscious mind tries to look after you, but sometimes it doesn't know how. Let me give you an example. Let's take the alcoholic. Now he knows consciously that he needs to stop drinking because it's taken away the quality and the effectiveness of his life. So let's suppose that he's even lost his job and he knows that if he doesn't stop drinking, he's going to lose his home and his family also. So he goes to a treatment center and he does great. He comes out and he doesn't touch alcohol for a year, maybe even 2 or 3. But then one night he's at a party and he thinks, you know what, I can handle this. I haven't drank for a year or 2. I'll just have 1 drink. But the subconscious mind that has never been worked with is very quick to grab hold of that, and it says, aha, I remember that. And he's right back there to square one again. Because, like I said, the subconscious mind has never been worked with. Here, we try to make it permanent by getting the subconscious mind to work with that person, making the process more permanent. Now here in the office at Atlanta West and with your hypnotherapist, 0 represents the deep hypnotic sleep. and 5 represents wide awake, refreshed with a sense of well-being and feeling good. So on your first visit, your first session, your hypnotherapist will want you to stay in a fairly light state because your hypnotherapist will want you to hear everything that he or she says to you. Sometimes it feels so good that you may want to go deeper into that more relaxing depth. And if that happens, your hypnotherapist may lighten your state by counting you up to 2 or 3 and then asking you to hold your depth there. On your first session, your subconscious mind doesn't know what to expect. So your defenses might be very, very high. So that fear of loss of control might be very high on your first visit, but on the second, it disappears because your subconscious mind knows what's going to happen. It says, oh, I know what this is all about now. However, if we run into resistance, it's usually the second or third session for the same reason. Your subconscious mind knows what's going to happen. And it says, hey, wait a minute. I happen to like that chocolate cake, and I'm not going to let you take that away from me. If that happens, we plow right through it and get whatever it is that you're wanting. Hypnotherapy is very relaxing, comfortable, and healthy. It's amazing. Often our clients tell us they sleep better, they're happier, they're more relaxed and calm, their blood pressure is doing better, and we have not even been working in those areas yet. We work with adults and children. Some of the problems are easier to work with than others. Let me give you an example. Alcohol is easier to work with than smoking. We work with study habits, career motivation, public speaking, sales, companies, with employee motivation. We work with all kinds of things. We work with many problems that have not responded to other methods. We work with relationships based on relationship strategies. We work with children, bedwetting, school problems, aggressiveness, shyness, saying no to the things that are not good for them, and many, many other things. The receptionist will take you back to the waiting room now, and soon your hypnotherapist will come and get you. Your hypnotherapist will be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Enjoy your session, and it was nice talking to you, and you have a great day.